Hey guys, Lunar New Year is just around the corner, and if you're anything like me, you're stressed about finding money to give to your cousins, getting the red envelopes, and then more importantly, what to make for dinner for Lunar New Year. So I'm here to show you 3 easy recipes to make for your friends and your family, and more importantly, to ring in a prosperous new year for 2025. Let's get started. So the first dish we're going to be making are dumplings. And so within our dumplings, we're going to have salt, white pepper instead of black pepper. We have pre-bought dumpling skins, but if you have your own recipe, you can make it from scratch if you want to. We're gonna have 80%, 20% lean to fat ratio pork, and the reason why we have a slightly higher ratio pork is because we want that higher fat content to add that juiciness and kind of add that good mouthfeel when we're eating our dumplings. And lastly, what we're gonna do is we're gonna add chives to our dumplings. And the reason why we're adding chives here is it adds two things. One, there's a good vegetal flavor when you're adding chives in. And then two is that chives are typically pretty garlicky in flavor. So what we're gonna do is instead of adding raw garlic into it, we're gonna substitute with just the chives in here. So in a mixing bowl, we're gonna go ahead and add our pork in. So we're gonna go and really eyeball what we're looking at on adding for the rest of our seasonings here. And the reason why I don't like to measure is because I like to play around and just like really be a tactile experience, which also means you should probably also use a lot of your hands, use your ears, look at your food, and really figure out what your food really needs. So once we add our pork in, we're gonna go ahead and add our salt. So I'm looking at the amount of pork that I have, looking at the salt that I have, and really just eyeballing what is it gonna be like where I'm just shy of too salty. So I'm gonna take my fingers, gonna go ahead, a really hefty pinch, gonna go ahead and add in. I'm looking at the salt now. It's okay. I think I'm gonna add another pinch, and we're gonna go ahead and taste this later anyways, to just make sure we get the right seasoning in. Go ahead and add in your black pepper, or your white pepper. Also to the point where you're like, is it gonna be too peppery? Maybe not, just shy of too peppery. And we're gonna go ahead and add in our sesame oil. This one, same thing. Add it to maybe where you're thinking it's too much sesame oil, but don't worry, the pork can take a lot of the flavors that we're adding here. So roughly, I maybe added like a tablespoon and a half. It really depends on how much pork that you have. I'm just eyeballing here, but if you want to be a little bit more specific, go ahead and use any measuring tools that you want at your disposal. And then look at your chives, clean off anything that you don't like. Mine look pretty good, mine look pretty clean. So I'm gonna take off the stem ends here, just because stem ends are a little bit bitter and you don't really want that in your dumplings. So we're gonna go ahead and cut this off. We're gonna set this to the side, and then we're gonna cut this in half. And then we're gonna go ahead, make it a little bit easier for us to cut. And go ahead, we're gonna probably cut maybe an inch, maybe a 3/4 of an inch in size here. So going in, cutting. Take this, scoop, and then add it straight into your pork mixture. So we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna take our hands. Don't be afraid, really get in there and start mixing everything around. So we're gonna take our fingers, go in, and what's important here is that we want a circular motion and in one direction. And the reason why is that you see how these are broken in to these long pork strands, I guess you would call them. What we want to do is we want to create and formulate a certain structure. So we're elongating and we're stretching out those pork proteins so we have a silkier mouth texture instead of just mashing our hands in. We're gonna just taste like a meatball almost. What we really want a uniform bite as we're mixing and we're kind of making our dumplings here. So go ahead, I'm gonna start with my hand going in, and I might just do a little bit of mashing a little bit just to incorporate everything. But once we really get everything incorporated, we're really gonna start honing in to making that circular motion. And if you really need to, you might need to add a little bit of liquid here. And if you need to add a little bit of liquid, you can add a little bit of sesame oil, or you can add a little bit of sake here. The only thing I don't recommend adding is adding water to your dumpling mixture, only because that's gonna really water down everything. And when you go to fry, you go to steam, a lot of that's gonna leak out and probably puncture and leak out from your dumplings. So our dumpling mixture is already mixed. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna do a taste check just to make sure that everything is good. Yes, we have to cook it. You just can't taste it out of the mixing bowl. So we're gonna take a little bit of our mixture. Maybe if you would scoop a tablespoon or so, go ahead, right into your pan. That's a good sizzle. We'll flatten it down just so that way we can cook it a little bit faster. And then this is the point where we're gonna figure out, do we need more salt, do we need more sesame oil, more black pepper, chives, etc., etc., etc. So we're gonna go ahead and cook this, taste test, and then we're gonna go ahead and go to wrapping right after. I have these dumpling skins here. Earlier, like I said, if you have homemade ones, go ahead and use your homemade ones. I bought these from my local Asian grocery store. These are the Korean style types, and there's a couple styles that people usually use. You have gyoza type, you have the Chinese Hong Kong style wrapper, Shanghai style, Northern style wrappers. This is the only one that my store had, so we're gonna be using the Korean ones. If you fry these, you're gonna get more of a bubbly texture on the bottom. If you have gyoza, because it's a thinner, little bit more of a hydration type dough, you're gonna get more of a crust, thin crust type. If you use Northern style or any other style, you're gonna get like a really thick, crusty bottom when you fry these. Luckily for today, we're not gonna be frying these. We're gonna be steaming these, so we don't have to worry about that. I'm gonna teach you two types of ways to style or wrap your dumplings. So one way is what you're gonna see is the pleated style, which I think is pretty popular amongst people when they're wrapping dumplings. And another one, which is also fairly popular, I don't really see too much people wrapping, at least, is the way where we take the corners in, we're gonna fold them in the middle, and if you don't know what that looks like, you're about to. So we have water, we're gonna try for our dumplings, our mixture. We're gonna go ahead, we're gonna take a wrapper, and I have a Ziploc bag here, by the way, because we don't want is, as we're wrapping, we don't want to have these skins dry out. So if at any point in time you're wrapping your dumplings, you're like, I'm gonna take a break, just make sure you take your wrappers and you put it inside a Ziploc baggie, or you wrap it in a damp cloth to make sure they don't dry out and get all crusty on you. So we're gonna take our spatula or any type of utensil, we're gonna go in, about a healthy size amount, maybe it's about a tablespoon amount of meat inside. We're gonna go in, put it right in the middle. And then we're gonna take our finger, we're gonna wet the edges, and this is gonna act as the glue to make sure that we adhere the skin to the other opposite side. So once we go ahead and wrap, we're gonna go ahead, take our thumb, push in the meat these in, we're gonna fold them in, and you're gonna see this little indentation, and all we're gonna do is we're gonna take our fingers, we're gonna move them, and then we're gonna meet the two corners in, we're gonna pinch nice and hard and seal, and that's one dumpling. So this is one style to make your dumpling. So the next one that we're gonna do is the pleated. So this one is same style, right? You wanna wet your wrapper. We're gonna wet this, and we're gonna put our meat mixture in. Doesn't matter what order you do it in. All that matters is that it tastes good. So go ahead, take our meat, add it in. I think that might be a little too much. And if you add too much, you can always take it out. You don't always have to restart, guys. And what we're gonna do, we're gonna take here, and all we're gonna do, we're gonna start at the edge, and we're gonna fold one side. So one side's gonna be pleated, one side's gonna be flat. Take, and we're gonna fold, we're gonna pleat, and we're gonna go in, and then we're gonna pleat the rest, and we're gonna fold, and go in. Mine are a little bit dry, but we're gonna fold, go in, and then fold again. And this is a little thick, but it should be working. Mine might be a little bit ugly. It's been a while since I folded dumplings this way, just because they're a little bit more labor intensive. A little ugly, but you get the idea. We're gonna pinch. And what's nice about this is we have this flat side here, and then we have this pleated edge here. These are so ugly, but yours will probably look a lot better than mine. And what's gonna be good is that once I fry these, or if I fry these, if I put them down, right, it stays up. If I just folded it out, what's gonna happen is that it's just gonna lay down on its side like this, or like this. So we're gonna go ahead, pinch, make sure all of our edges are sealed in, and you're gonna go ahead, rinse and repeat until you finish through all your dumpling skins, or you make the amount that you wanna make for your dinner. So we got our dumplings wrapped. 8, if you guys know, then you know. 8's a lucky number. We have a pot of water boiling. I have my steamer basket in the back. So we're gonna go ahead, we're going to steam our dumplings. So we have our dumplings ready, our steamer basket, our water is boiling. We're gonna go ahead and just lift the parchment paper and just place it right into the steamer basket. If you wanna do this by a time, 6, 8 minutes, depending on how hot your water in the steam you got going on. Or visually, you'll be able to tell when the skin starts to tighten around and kind of wrinkle around your meat filling. So we're gonna go ahead. We're just gonna go ahead and take this. It doesn't have to be pretty, as long as it just goes in, that's all that matters. Place it in. That's in there, that's in there. Don't be afraid, it's not that hot. And then put cover over, and we'll come back in 6 to 8 minutes. 8 minutes have passed. We're gonna go ahead, lift this up, see if we did a good job. I think we did. Let's have some confidence here. Touch it, don't be afraid to touch. It's not that hot. If you have mom hands, like I do, just go ahead. So go ahead, lift. It's a little inflated, and it's starting to shrink down a little bit, which is good. So you see here, this one has some good shrinkage here. This is starting to wrinkle up, and the rest of these also have wrinkled up. So we're gonna go ahead, turn our fire off, and we're gonna go ahead and plate. And you guys can serve this up however you want to. Some people like having sauce with their dumplings. Some people like adding chili oil to their dumplings. I am the chili oil variety. So we're gonna go ahead and dress this with some chili oil. If you see this and it's sticking, that's okay. Just go ahead and try to lift the whole thing up. Dumplings are ready. What we're gonna do is I have some crushed peanuts here. All I did was run it through a food processor. Use whatever you have in your home. I have a food processor. If you have a mortar, you can use a mortar. Use the back of a knife, use the back of a knife, use the back of a pan, use the back of a pan. Or if you don't like peanuts, don't add them at all. It's your choice. And I have some fried shallots here. And what we're gonna do, we're gonna take our chili oil, and I have this here. It's Ode to Sunset Park Special Edition chili oil. My friend Sean Liu, he's the chef and owner of MSG Kitchen. If you guys want to go ahead and buy this from him, he does make it in batches every now and then. So feel free to go ahead and support him. I'll link it in the description later for you guys to check out. And do taste tests, check if we did a good job, and hopefully something that you guys can serve to your friends and family. So I'm gonna go ahead, spread, look around, I'm gonna get this one, drag it, get a good amount of chili oil on there, good amount of crisp. I'm gonna get a little bit of scallion in there, and grab, and let's eat. Oh yeah. That's good. The second dish we're gonna be making is pan-fried noodles. This is gonna consist of some egg noodles that we have here, carrot, onion, chives, some scallions, and then for our sauce, what we're gonna do to flavor our noodles, we have sugar for balance, dark soy sauce for color, and then light soy sauce for that salinity and kind of more of that umami feeling and taste when you guys are eating it. So let's get started. We're gonna start cutting our carrot first, followed by our onion. So with your carrot, we're gonna take a look. This is a little too big for what I need it to be. So we're gonna cut this in half. So I'm gonna cut the top and then cut this about in half. The best way to guess how much you actually need or how much you don't need is you want to take a look visually, right? We're taking a look at this and you're gonna look at this and you're gonna say, I think this is a good bite-sized piece. And if you can say that, then this is probably the right size that you need to cut it to. So we're gonna go ahead and peel. I have a little bowl here for all my scraps. I'm gonna go ahead and peel our carrot. And after we peel our carrot, we're gonna go ahead and julienne our carrot right after. Just put them aside. We're gonna move on to our onion. We're looking at this and we're like, maybe a full onion, like a half onion's too much. So it's okay if you want to cut a quarter off, a third off, whatever you want to do. I'm thinking maybe we'll do like a third. So we're gonna go down here, go down, and move this to the side. Peel off any excess skin from our onion. Peel. The first layer is usually this dry layer, so you can go ahead and peel that off. We're gonna keep this, we're gonna push it down, and you're gonna see that it's gonna go pole to pole, as Kenji Lopez always says, pole to pole. We're going side to side where we're cutting across the grain. What we wanna do is we wanna go pole to pole when we're cutting our onion. So we're gonna take our knife, we're gonna go in, confident strokes, and we're gonna mow through, knuckle behind, thumb behind, and finally slice these onions. So just like the dumpling, we're gonna cut the butt off. The butt's a little bitter, we don't need it. Make this a little bit more wieldy to handle. We're gonna cut this in half, and we're going to keep this here. I'm looking at it, and you're gonna see that I cut everything into long, lengthy pieces to eat, and it's because we're eating noodles. And when we're eating noodles, right, we don't want all these tiny little pieces to get left behind in the bowl or the plate. We want everything to be easily picked up into our chopsticks. So I'm looking at this, maybe 1.5 2 inches. I'm just gonna half this, and then I'm gonna half the halves. This looks good to me. I'm gonna go ahead, scoop this up, and we're going to go ahead and add that to our plate. And then we're gonna go ahead and make the sauce for our beef pan-fried noodles. I'm looking at this pack that I have, and I wanna say I wanna go for about maybe 2 tablespoons of soy sauce, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little less, I won't really know until I actually start pouring and I can visually see it. So we're gonna go ahead, go in, that's a little bit more. And then we're gonna go ahead with our dark. The dark, you don't need a lot of. This is only for color. There's no flavor. It tastes exactly the same as light soy sauce. And maybe half a tablespoon, maybe a teaspoon. And we're gonna go in with our sugar. This one, maybe a tablespoon or so, half a tablespoon. Gotta add that in to balance. And the last thing I forgot to add, our oyster sauce. Now our oyster sauce is gonna add something that people talk about, it's called umami. And it's because oysters have a concentrated amount of umami inside. So this sauce is literally boiled down oysters and taken all that leftover liquid and then concentrating and concentrating and concentrating until you have something that is this. I'm going in maybe a tablespoon or so, and that is it. And the last thing, which is probably surprising to some people, is we're gonna dilute this with water. This looks okay. I'm gonna go ahead, add it in. Maybe a little bit more. I'm gonna go ahead and add the whole thing. I think that's enough. And then I'm gonna go ahead and mix this up. Make sure everything's dissolved, your sugar, your oyster, until you have one homogeneous and mixed liquid. We're gonna set this aside, and then we're gonna clean all this up. We're gonna get the stove on. We're gonna boil our noodles, and I'm gonna teach you a trick on how to do everything, so that way you have the nice tasty texture and good mouthfeel when you're eating this. So I just boiled my noodles and I drained them out. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and cook our vegetables. So heat on, and go ahead and feel it. It's coming to the temperature pretty well. Vegetables in. It's a good sizzle. And we're only gonna go Maybe about 30 seconds stir frying it. All we're really looking for here is we're looking for our onions to get translucent, and we're looking for a little bit of color just so that we get that Maillard reaction kind of flavor going on in our dish. And I'm starting to see that they're starting to get translucent. So at this point, heat off, set them aside. Make sure you start with a clean pan. Back in with oil. And we're gonna go ahead and add our noodles in. Good batch. We're gonna add it in batches because what we wanna do is we wanna build up the layer, right? So this bottom part right now, this is the crispy layer. And we're gonna build so that way we have a little bit of that flaky and fluffy texture going on in both sides. So in, break apart if you need to, and make sure your heat is at a good temperature, not too high, only because you risk burning your noodles. And so this happened maybe about a minute and a half. This doesn't take too long. I'm looking now, it's drying out. There's some golden browning happening. I think I like where this is headed. So at this point, the sauce that we mixed earlier, we're gonna go ahead and just like the oil, we're gonna pour around the edge. And that sound you're hearing is what we wanna hear. All this is your soy sauce and your sugar getting brown and caramelized. So mix in, make sure all your noodles are coated in this sauce. If you don't see all of it getting colored, that's okay, keep mixing. A lot goes a long way. Back in with our vegetables. And we're gonna do long strokes of where we pull these noodles up. And we're gonna fold, and we're gonna incorporate all these vegetables into our dish. Take your scallions that you have before, either you slice or you have it like me where it's pre-sliced already. Add those in, and that residual heat is gonna wilt, soften, and soften that flavor a little bit so you don't have that bite that you have typically when you're biting into raw scallions. Go ahead and grab a plate and or a bowl and go ahead and serve it. Plate, slide it in there. If you want to garnish with more scallions, feel free to, if you like that raw bite of scallions that you have or that they have. If you don't add more scallions. If this doesn't impress your family or your friends, honestly, I don't think anything else will impress them. And lastly, the last dish we're going to make is steamed fish. And what I have here is tilapia. You can use whatever fish that you like to steam. And the reason why we're going with steamed fish as a dish is because the Chinese word for fish, yu, is a homonym for another word in Chinese that also sounds similar, and that means surplus. So when you have steamed fish for Lunar New Year, you are eating in the hopes that you are having a surplus of luck, money, wealth, etc., etc. So for this dish, very easy. It's scallions, ginger, oil, and then soy sauce. So let's go in and get right to it. So we're gonna go ahead and start cutting our ginger. And when you look for ginger, what you're really looking for is you're looking for pieces that aren't dry and kind of brittle. So here it might look like it's a little dry here, but this is okay. Things that you don't really want is you definitely don't want greening around these edges right here. And what you really want is something that is not what you call flimsy and or squishy. You want something that's firm here. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna cut a long piece because we want julienne pieces here. I'm gonna cut this piece right here, set aside the other. And what we're gonna do, and you can use a spoon, a peeler, whatever you wanna use to peel your ginger.
we're going to go ahead and start peeling and clean this up for ourselves so that way we don't have any of that nasty skin when we go ahead and add it to our dish. Go down, slice, go down and slice, and go ahead and go to town on these pieces. And then I have the scallions that are already pre-cut and pre-sliced. Go ahead, take a nice healthy bunch, and then take that in roughly the same amount for the ginger. When you are shopping for fish, is you want to see these really clear eyes here. Clear eyes means that it's freshly killed, there's no decay, it's not getting moldy or rotted on you. And if you lift up, and if you have gills on your fish when you start shopping for it, is you really want to see the gills. Here it's already got gutted out, but if you are still at the grocery store and you're looking for fish, you want really bright and red gills. And if you are allowed to touch the fish, what you want to feel is this kind of slime here. But this is healthy and good slime, right? What's really going to be a deciding factor is if you have slime, but it starts to coagulate around your finger and you start to see it group up, that's a sign of a not so fresh fish. So I'm going to go ahead, run my hands across, look for any scales. I see one here. I'm going to take it out, flip it over, check the other side. Everything looks pretty good. So at this point, we decided our fish is good. We have our aromatics set aside. I'm going to go ahead and grab our plate for the fish. I'm going to take it, I'm going to put it inside. And if it doesn't fit all the way inside, that's okay. It doesn't need to lie flat inside. All that really matters is that as long as it stays inside for your steamer to cook. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to take our scallions, we're going to take our ginger, and all we're going to do, we're going to put a little bit inside, a little bit on top. Be playful. It doesn't have to look pretty as long as it's on there. And this is going to perfume our fish with all those flavors. All right, so we got our pot boiling over here. We have our steamer basket and our fish. What we're going to do right before we add our fish into the steamer is we're going to add a little bit of soy sauce to it. So go ahead, lift your cover off. Nice rolling boil. And place your basket on top. And go ahead and put your fish and then cover, soy sauce. And then after we add our soy sauce, go ahead and cover. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna aim a little bit on the fish, and then, but mostly what we really want is the soy sauce on the bottom. Go ahead and cover. This doesn't fit, but it's okay. We'll let this ride out about 10, 12 minutes, and then we'll come back and check to see if it's done. All right, so it's been about 12 minutes since we started steaming our fish, and one good clear sign is if your fish is done is you're gonna see this eye here, and if it looks opaque, that means your fish is fully cooked. And we're gonna add a fresh batch of scallions and ginger. So what we're gonna do is take the scallions and ginger, add it on top, and separately I heated up some oil in a pan till it was about smoking, and all you're gonna do is go ahead and add it, and it's going to activate your aromats. Go ahead and take your dish out. So I have these nice little things that hopefully we'll take out. I'm gonna put it on top of here and hopefully not drop it. And we're gonna go ahead and dig into the fish. That ginger plays off really well, because the fish itself, it's not fishy, but that nice little heat in the back with the scallions, it's a good bite. I lied before. if this doesn't impress your friends and family, then I don't know what will. You know what? Scratch that. If any of these dishes don't impress your friends and family, I guarantee you nothing will impress them. Hope you guys enjoy the video. These are 3 easy recipes for you guys to make this Lunar New Year. If you liked what you saw, don't forget to comment, subscribe, like, all those things help boost the channel and helps me support the channel to give you guys more content like this. Anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and dig in and have a happy Lunar New Year.